Kitasan Black. Kitasan Black looks completely ordinary when you first get her. Most players see those zero limit break stats and think she's just another mid-tier speed card. That's the biggest mistake you can make in deck building. Here's the twist. She transforms into your deck's engine once you invest properly. Her stat scaling and limit break progression create the reliable speed anchor that other cards simply can't match. There's lore here, but mechanically you care about her LB and where she sits in your speed core. You don't even need to own her at high limit breaks to benefit. Smart players borrow high-level Kitasan Black cards from friends and build their entire speed core around that borrowed power. Pair her with common speed SRs like Asian Flash, Sweep Tasho, and King Halo for a workable foundation that competes with expensive collections. But here's what changes everything. Upgrading her to just one limit break unlocks the speed foundation that separates winning decks from losing ones. That single upgrade creates the backbone every competitive speed build needs. Now, speed strategies need stamina support that goes beyond raw numbers. Super Creek. Super Creek enables your entire deck in ways that raw stamina numbers never show. Most players chase cards with higher stamina output and completely miss what makes her special. Here's what they're missing. Her 15 training effectiveness and 30-point friendship gauge create synergy across every single stat in your deck. Think of it like a multiplier effect. While other stamina cards just boost stamina, Super Creek amplifies everything else you're trying to build. Her mood effects and recovery power become very strong in longer races and PvP positioning scenarios where sustain and recovery matter. When races stretch into extended positioning fights, her recovery mechanics keep your horse competitive while opponents fade. What that means for you. She boosts cross-training gains so speed, power, and stamina clicks all scale better, and her recovery makes long races easier to clear. Pair her with a core speed setup if you want consistency over high variant setups. Bottom line, every C. She's the foundation for longer, more consistent runs that win races other stamina cards can't handle. Her cross-training potential means every training session becomes more effective, creating compound returns that show up across multiple race scenarios. But what happens when your collection lacks that focused approach entirely? Mejiro McQueen. Mejiro McQueen fills the gaps that specialized cards leave behind. When your collection lacks focus or you're missing key pieces for complete strategies, she becomes the versatile solution that makes everything work together. Here's the dilemma most players face. You need multiple strong cards to compete, but you're working with what you actually own instead of what you want. Building around incomplete collections means making tough choices between waiting for perfect cards or working with flexible options. Her balanced stat distribution bridges different deck archetypes where specialized cards might fail without proper limit breaks. Use her when your collection is missing dedicated stamina or power supports. EVAD, she bridges gaps and performs reliably in mixed scenarios. Think of her as your flexible fallback option that handles multiple situations effectively. Her flexibility works well in mixed race scenarios, though specialized SRs still outperform her at higher limit breaks or in optimized builds. She becomes that perfect third or fourth card that transforms incomplete lineups into competitive decks when you're working with available cards rather than chasing every meta option. But sometimes you need that rock-solid foundation that never lets you down. Manhattan Cafe. Manhattan Cafe delivers consistent stamina performance without the drama of flashier alternatives. She's the card you build around when you want predictable results every single race. Here's what makes her different. Reason her high specialty priority, 70, and consistent energy event support create superior value where it actually counts. When you need predictable stamina gains and fewer swings, pick Manhattan. She trades peak output for consistency, which is what you want when you're aiming to hit stat thresholds rather than gamble on big rolls. Her steady training gains become the foundation that stamina-heavy strategies depend on. While other cards create explosive moments, she builds the consistent base that keeps your deck competitive across multiple race types and conditions. Consistency beats flashy numbers in competitive scenarios because you can predict and plan around her contributions. She never surprises you with disappointing performances or unexpected energy drains. She becomes the dependable backbone that lets you experiment with riskier choices in other deck positions. But what happens when you want the complete opposite approach? HFIC, maximum output over reliability. Satono Diamond. Satono Diamond takes the complete opposite approach with her high output stamina mechanics. Where Kitasan Black builds consistent speed foundations, Diamond focuses on explosive stamina output through her strong mood effects and high friendship gauge that changes how you approach race strategy entirely. Here's the choice you're making: steady speed building that works across multiple race types, or high output stamina that dominates in specific scenarios. This rivalry created two distinct paths for competitive deck building. Her high stamina output opens strategic possibilities that speed-focused builds simply can't access. Think marathon runner versus sprinter. Diamond's approach excels in longer races where stamina becomes the deciding factor rather than early speed advantages, especially when endurance and late positioning matter most. Use her in long-distance or positioning-heavy races, or when you expect the race to go deep into late-fight scenarios. She wins more races than speed alternatives when positioning battles extend into the final stretch, where her stamina focus becomes decisive when multiple horses reach the final turn with similar positions. That high-effectiveness stamina approach works best when you can maximize the development speed of your entire deck. Mayono Top Gun. Mayono Top Gun transforms how quickly your deck develops from average to competitive. Most players see her stats and think she's just another training card, but they're missing the acceleration engine she creates. Here's what makes her special. Her high training effectiveness combined with a large friendship bonus but low friendship gauge creates exponential returns that compound every single training session. Think of her like compound interest for your deck building. Each session amplifies future effectiveness, but you get big bond bursts when you do reach Rainbow, though it takes more clicks to get there. Her skill point generation makes Rainbow pulls happen more frequently, and those Rainbow moments become significantly more valuable when they occur. More skill points mean better skills, and better skills mean more competitive races across every scenario. Use her when you can stack other bond sources or when you're prepared to click her repeatedly for skill points. If you want fast deck development and more skills, slot a skill point SR like Mayono and plan to click her when she appears on other teammates. Bottom line, fast grade, she creates a compounding effect that makes her essential for fast deck development rather than slow grinding. But acceleration only matters when you have the raw output to back it up. El Condor Pasa. El Condor Pasa is a strong, power-focused option that changes how you approach races when the conditions favor early aggression. Most power cards boost raw stats, but she works best when the race favors early pressure or when your skill and positioning lineup benefits from sustained dominance. Here's the trade-off you're making. Power output that can overwhelm opponents versus maintaining the deck balance that keeps you competitive across different race scenarios. Power-focused strategies outperform balanced approaches when race conditions reward aggressive tactics over careful positioning. Her bonuses create opportunities in shorter races where explosive power becomes the deciding factor rather than endurance or positioning finesse. Sprint races and mile distances become her specialty, where her power focus translates directly into winning position. Always check the card's actual skill list for encloser, positioning, or spurt skills before committing MMI. Power cards differ by skill set, not just raw numbers. When the track rewards early leads and sustained pressure, her approach becomes decisive. But some power cards create complications that aren't immediately obvious from their impressive stat lines. Vodka. Vodka offers exceptional recovery potential that looks amazing on paper, but her large power numbers and low training effectiveness create deck balance complications that catch players off guard. Here's what happens real is her exceptional power numbers seem perfect until you realize they can throw off your entire deck's synergy. Think of it like adding a turbo engine to a regular car. The extra power is impressive, but now your transmission needs upgrades to handle that performance. Her golden recovery mechanics become race-changing advantages in specific scenarios where stamina drain becomes a major factor. When races extend into grinding battles where multiple horses are pushing their limits, her recovery keeps her competitive while others fade. Pair Vodka only with cards that address the energy penalty and missing cross-training, and else. Otherwise, her power can create energy and balance problems. You need cards that complement her power focus without creating conflicts that undermine her effectiveness. She's worth the complexity in endurance-heavy matches where recovery matters. Otherwise, consider more balanced power SRs. Her benefits outweigh the complications when recovery becomes the deciding factor between winning and placing. But what happens when a power card breaks conventional design rules entirely? Hishi Amazon. Hishi Amazon brings a 43-point friendship bonus that often outperforms slightly higher raw stat SRs because it accelerates skill and bond gains across your deck. Most power cards focus on raw stats, but her friendship advantage creates opportunities that raw numbers simply cannot match. Here's what that massive friendship bonus actually does. It speeds up rainbow transitions and skill acquisition and helps you hit the 34% race bonus threshold faster. Think of it like having a personal trainer who makes every workout twice as effective. Each training session builds friendship faster, which means more frequent rainbow moments and better skill selections. Her friendship bonus creates synergy effects that multiply across your entire deck. When she reaches high friendship levels quickly, other cards benefit from the improved training atmosphere and enhanced cross-training opportunities. The friendship advantage compounds with every card in your lineup. Use Hishi when your goal is to speed up skill access and reach race bonus thresholds, not merely to maximize a single stat. Instead of just boosting power, she boosts everything indirectly through enhanced training effectiveness. But some power cards create the opposite problem, impressive stats that come with hidden complications. Biwa Hayahide. Biwa Hayahide delivers exceptional power stats that look perfect until you discover she applies a serious energy penalty that can be 10 or worse depending on the event. Most players see those impressive numbers and add her immediately, then wonder why their deck feels sluggish during races. Here's the problem. That penalty can force extra rests and hurt end race performance. Think of it like a sports car with a tiny gas tank finds one. The performance looks amazing, but you might run out of fuel before reaching the finish line. Her power output overcomes the energy penalty in shorter races, where explosive performance matters more than sustained energy. Sprint distances and scenarios where early positioning determines the outcome become her specialty areas. If you run Biwa, pair her with energy gain cards or cards that generate additional clicks and energy events to avoid being forced into rests. You need deck compositions that support her power focus while maintaining enough energy reserves for race completion. The calculation comes down to race length versus power needs. When races favor explosive power over endurance, her complexity becomes worthwhile. But some power cards take the opposite approach, others say, focusing entirely on specialized builds rather than general applications. Daitaku Helios. Daitaku Helios focuses entirely on endurance-focused builds where specialized approaches matter more than general versatility. Most power cards try to balance multiple strengths, but she commits fully to one tactical approach. Here's the question you need to answer. When does specialized focus actually beat well-rounded strategies? Think of it like choosing between a marathon specialist versus a decathlete. The decathlete handles more events, but the specialist dominates their chosen distance. Use Daitaku when you need sustained performance in long races or difficult track conditions NXP deck. She beats well-rounded picks in those niche scenarios. Her skill-endurance synergy creates advantages that compound specifically in longer races, where endurance becomes the primary factor rather than early speed or positioning tricks. Specialization outperforms generalists only in races that play to that specialty, so match the card to the race type. Distance races, challenging track conditions, and scenarios where multiple horses remain competitive deep into the final stretch all favor her focused approach. Bottom line, she wins races that generalist cards simply cannot handle effectively. But sometimes the gaps in your deck aren't about raw stats at all. Mihono Bourbon. Mihono Bourbon fills gaps that speed, stamina, and power cards simply cannot address. Most players focus on the big three stat categories and miss the utility effects that actually solve deck composition problems. Here's what makes her different. 1. Her specific bonuses complement other card categories instead of competing with them. If you're missing energy management or cross-train smoothing, Mihono Bourbon's utility effects can be worth more than a raw stat slot. Her utility effects outweigh raw stat contributions in scenarios where deck synergy matters more than individual card power. When you need cards that enhance other cards rather than dominate independently, utility effects become the missing piece that transforms good decks into great ones. Bring her when you need to shore up the deck's function, not when you want raw numbers. Missing energy management, poor training efficiency, or weak cross-training synergy all require utility solutions rather than bigger numbers. Bottom line, HS Fect. She makes your entire deck function better rather than just adding more power to one area. But there's one stat category that most players completely overlook when building competitive decks. Haru Urara. Haru Urara represents the main guts option that most players completely undervalue in their deck compositions. She's a valuable welfare guts option with 15 training effectiveness and a notable friendship bonus, though many guides advise not prioritizing her until you can invest limit breaks. Here's what they're missing. Guts becomes the deciding factor in positioning battles where multiple horses fight for the same racing line. Think of it like having better reflexes in a crowded race. When horses cluster together in tight positions, Guts determines who can maintain their chosen line and who gets forced into less favorable positions. She's best as a cross-training clicker. You click her on other teammates to get skill points and cross-train gains rather than clicking her only for Guts. Her skill point bonus and consistent training support cross-training effectiveness without dominating your entire deck strategy. Guts thresholds work by determining late race positioning mechanics when horses are fighting for optimal racing line. Higher guts means better positioning control when races get crowded. She becomes essential in fighting for position scenarios that actually determine race outcomes rather than raw speed differences. But positioning control is just one piece of a much larger tactical puzzle. Fine motion. Fine motion opens up tactical approaches that completely change how you think about winning races. Most players stick to speed, stamina, and power because those stats feel straightforward and predictable. Here's what intelligence cards actually do. They shift the fundamental game approach from raw stat maximization to strategic manipulation of race conditions. Think of it like switching from arm wrestling to chess. Both games involve competition, but they require totally different skills to win. Her very large friendship bonus and 15 training effectiveness make her strong for intelligence and cross-training builds that need rapid development. She generates the resources needed to unlock debuff effects while supporting your deck's overall development through enhanced training sessions. She also carries a gold pace chaser skill that can be relevant for certain characters. Dated. Slot her if you need that skill or the rapid friendship growth. Use fine motion when you need fast skill growth and strong INT output. She supports both pure intelligence strategies and hybrid approaches that blend intelligence with traditional stat building. This flexibility lets you experiment with debuffer tactics without completely abandoning the stat-focused strategies you already understand. Bottom line deck 6-6. She provides strategic flexibility for players who want alternatives to pure stat builds. But some cards take that alternative approach even further. Symboli Rudolf. Symboli Rudolf enables an entirely different way to win races that most players never even consider. Instead of building bigger numbers, she creates strategies that actively weaken your opponents while they're running. Here's the radical shift at debuffer strategies flip traditional racing on its head. Think of it like switching from trying to run faster to making everyone else run slower. Both approaches win races, but debuffing requires completely different tactical thinking than stat maximization. She provides the hints required to trigger debuff effects despite her poor stat output. OC. Use her for debuffer archetypes despite her low raw numbers. Her skill lineup focuses specifically on opponent manipulation rather than self-enhancement, creating the foundation that makes debuffer builds actually viable in competitive scenarios. Debuffer decks borrow or stack higher LB int cards around Symboli. You click her for hints rather than for raw stat rainbows. Agnes, Marvelous, and Fine Motion are common companions that provide the intelligence foundation while she delivers the debuff mechanics. Debuffer strategies outperform pure stat maximization when race scenarios favor tactical control over brute force approaches. But not every intelligence strategy requires such specialized commitment to one tactical approach. Agnes Tachyon. Agnes Tachyon supports multiple intelligence strategies without forcing you into one specific approach. Most intelligence cards specialize in either pure intelligence builds or hybrid applications, but she handles both effectively with her skill point bonus and cross-training utility. Here's what makes her versatile. Bonuses work equally well, whether you're building a full debuffer deck or just adding intelligence support to traditional stat strategies. Think of her like a universal adapter that connects different tactical approaches. She enhances pure intelligence builds while also supporting hybrid decks that blend intelligence with speed or stamina focus. Her contributions compound with other intelligence cards to create maximum synergy effects. When combined with specialized debuffer cards, her bonuses amplify their effectiveness. When paired with hybrid intelligence options, she provides the foundation that makes mixed strategies actually competitive. Her bonuses scale well with other int cards and typically compound your deck's int effectiveness as you add more intelligence cards to your deck composition. Use Agnes when you want a flexible INT support that works in both debuffer builds and hybrid decks. She becomes the foundation for any intelligence-focused strategy because her versatility lets you experiment with different approaches while maintaining competitive performance. But when you need maximum debuff potential, versatility isn't enough. Marvelous Sunday. Marvelous Sunday has a strong straight-line debuff skill set that is central for debuffer builds, and many guides consider her a cornerstone of that archetype. Most intelligence cards offer support abilities, but she delivers the debuff potential that other cards simply cannot match. Here's what sets her apart. She supplies the core debuff tools other INT cards cannot replicate. Think of her like having the master key that opens every locked door in a building. Other intelligence cards might open some doors, but she provides access to the entire debuffer toolkit. Her straight-line debuffs and velocity control create the foundation that makes debuffer strategies actually work in competitive scenarios. These abilities directly manipulate opponent performance during races rather than just boosting your own stats. If you want to try debuffer tactics in competitive play, Marvelous Sunday should be high on your list because she enables viable debuff decks. Pair with Symboli and Agnes or Fine Motion for complete debuffer coverage. Her skill lineup transforms debuffer strategies from niche experiments into legitimate competitive approaches that can win races through tactical control. But even with specialized strategies covered, comprehensive deck building requires one more consideration. Daiwa Scarlet. Daiwa Scarlet fills the remaining gaps that even comprehensive strategies leave behind. Most players build strong foundations with speed, stamina, and power cards, then wonder why their decks still feel incomplete in certain race scenarios. Use her to shore up the last weaknesses in mixed or meta decks any 1/6/new shit. She handles situations others miss. She helps in scenarios where you need a specific skill or niche bonus that no other card in your lineup supplies. Think of her like the last puzzle piece that makes the entire picture clear. Without her, you have most of the strategy, but you're missing crucial elements for specific situations. Her role in creating well-rounded decks becomes apparent when you face multiple race scenarios that require different tactical approaches. She handles the edge cases and unusual conditions that specialized cards cannot address effectively. She represents the final optimization that separates good decks from great ones because she eliminates the weaknesses that opponents can exploit. But knowing which cards matter is only half the equation. The real question becomes how to build winning combinations when you're working with the cards you actually own rather than chasing every perfect piece.